Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. The City of Windsor has released its draft budget today. CBC Windsor's Chris Ensing breaks it down for us. Plus, recycling will be switching hands from municipalities to private companies. We tell you what this means for Windsor Essex, and big night for the Michigan Wolverines fans as they take on the Washington Huskies in the national championship. Homeowners in Windsor are looking at a tax hike, one that the mayor says is needed to keep pace with rising costs. The CBC's Chris Ensing breaks down the city's draft budget released earlier today.
I can confidently say that this has been amongst the most challenging in all of my years at City Hall.
Standing inside City Hall, Windsor's mayor pitches his first strong mayor budget, featuring a 3.9% tax hike.
Almost pain-free proposals to continue service delivery in 2024, much the same as you've seen in 2023.
This budget calls for $18 million in new annual spending. The biggest chunk covers raises and increased costs of benefits for city employees. No job losses, according to the mayor.
What you're seeing in this budget, Chris, this budget is really about maintaining service delivery. In fact, in this budget, you will see some requirements to add staff in order to maintain service delivery.
Windsor will hire 9 new bus drivers to cover off a new sick leave program. Bus fares could go up by 10%. A one-way trip would cost $3.75. Windsor also expects to make more money this year from 2 big revenue generators. They're banking that the dividend from the Windsor-Detroit tunnel will go up by a third, another $500,000. And the city expects to cash in on sports betting over at the casino, planning to rake in another $500,000 in the hosting fee. Councillors looking on say this budget seems to be well-rounded.
If you look at one of the main concerns of residents throughout Windsor, it was keeping our taxes low. So this budget hits that point on the mark, being the lowest in Essex County.
I can say that I haven't seen any red flags at this point. The challenges are always, most often to be found in the details around what are the specific choices that were made around the different initiatives that we would fund.
But this document is gigantic, hundreds of pages with thousands of line items. That includes a nearly $2 billion 10-year capital budget that covers road and sewer work. City Council has 30 days to study the budget and then offer improvements. Everyone is invited to City Hall on January 22nd to share their thoughts on the document. It's expected to be finalized before the first week of February. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
And we were curious about what you wanted to see in the budget, so we sent the CBC's TJ Deer to find out.
Well, one of the big things that I noticed moving from Vancouver to Windsor was the quality of the roads. The roads here really seem poorly maintained compared to the roads in Vancouver. And I first really noticed that when I got a flat tire here. And if this was in Vancouver, I would have immediately realized I had a flat tire and that something was wrong. Because the car clearly it was shaking more than normal, right? But this being Windsor and having driven here for a few weeks at that point, I just thought it was just the roads, because in my experience the roads were not great, and definitely part of the shaking was because of the road. The other part was because of a flat tire, but it took me driving about 5 kilometers before someone flagged me down and told me I had a flat tire, because I really didn't quite know what was wrong and didn't think it was that serious and just thought it was because the roads were poorly maintained.
Anyone that's living on the streets, just to give them a better life as well.
What do you think the city should do to help them out?
Definitely housing funding, or as well as setting them up with job opportunities, or just setting them up so that they have a nice place to stay.
Speeding in the area where I live, which is downtown. Yeah, lots of speeding.
Yeah, and you hear it at night as well, people just revving by. Eh?
Yes, definitely. Especially since the pandemic, I think it's gotten worse. Yeah, people have a lot of road rage.
What do you want the city to do about that?
Traffic calming measures, speed bumps. I've already seen a few of those meters go up that tell drivers their speed. I think that does help a little, and more enforcement.
A 35-year-old Windsor man has been arrested and charged in connection to the sexual assault of a minor. Windsor police say it received a complaint that a 15-year-old female had been sexually assaulted and held against her will for 4 days. Investigators learned the victim met with the suspect at a residence in the 300 block of Glengarry Avenue. The victim eventually escaped the residence and was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Following an investigation, the man faces 6 charges, including forcible confinement and assault by choking. Windsor's first job report for the new year has once again placed us in an unfortunate but familiar spot. Windsor has the highest unemployment rate for Canada's largest cities. The December report from Statistics Canada shows 8.1% of people 15 years or older who are looking for work are unemployed. That totals for about 16,000 people. Unemployment was up by 900 people, half a percentage point compared to November. Some changes are coming to your recycling. That will be picked up. The province started rolling out a system last year, putting the responsibility on companies that produce the goods. But as Dale Molnar reports, the plan might not be as environmentally friendly as it should be.
About 1,000 companies in Ontario that produce goods with packaging that is recyclable have coordinated with a firm to handle the recycling program in Windsor, Essex. It's part of a new system the province began rolling out last year called a producer responsibility model. The companies that sell their goods with recyclable packaging will now be responsible for recycling it. All municipalities across the province will no longer be responsible for household recyclables after the end of 2025.
That will then hopefully incentivize these producers to actually create packaging that's much easier to recycle than it is today.
The CEO of the firm handling the recycling program says they will continue to use GFL to pick up the materials. They will also harmonize the collection schedule with the current one, and we will still be able to use the same boxes.
Not much is going to change. It's going to be business as usual, seamless transition, and it won't be any change from the current contractor.
The director of the Citizens Environment Alliance agrees with making the companies responsible for diverting waste from landfills, but he says they should be concentrating on reducing and reusing, not recycling.
Recycling is the least, it's the most environmentally impactful. The least environmentally impactful you want to do in those 3 R's is reduce first, then reuse, then recycle. And we're all focusing on recycling only. The biggest loophole is the fact that it's focused on households in Ontario, and households produce less than half the waste in Ontario.
Coronado says recycling only diverts a small percentage of plastics from landfills, but Albadoni says the program could also encourage the companies to use less packaging and packaging that can be reused. She says the Solid Waste Authority still has to work out how the recyclables will be collected from institutions and businesses.
By the end of 2025, the entire province should be switched over to this new program. And then in 2026, the producers could change some of the details of the program to allow more things to be recycled.
Some of what we've seen in other jurisdictions, you could see things like coffee cups, various types of flexible plastics.
And the money the city spends on recycling will instead be used on its organic waste program. That's mandated to begin next year. Meanwhile, this new recycling program will cost the companies money, but Langdon says that cost may be passed on to the consumer when the goods are purchased. The private sector will take over the recycling program in Windsor, Essex on August 28th. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Principals, parents, and teachers are speaking out about staff shortages in schools. The Ontario Principals Council says it's having a negative impact on learning and safety for students. Talia Ricci has more.
It's back to the books for teachers and students across Ontario today.
You know, it's pretty exciting to go back, see all my friends.
We're excited to get back to school again and get back into the regular routine.
But it's also back to dealing with burnout, unfilled positions, and canceled classes, according to the Ontario Principals Council.
Our principals and vice principals really are run off their feet each and every day. This is not a problem that only impacts some schools and some boards and some parts of the board. This is a widespread issue across the province of Ontario and has been for the last several years. It isn't getting any better. It's actually getting worse.
Nigro says this impacts learning and the safety of staff and students. The issue stems from a number of things, including a high amount of vacancies, not having enough replacements, and difficulties recruiting new staff, especially educational assistants. The Ontario Principals Council says it's made several recommendations to the province.
Some financial incentives need to be provided for the hiring of educational assistants. We need the ministry to more closely monitor staff shortage data on a board-by-board basis, and also ask boards for what their plan is to address these shortages.
The Ministry of Education says it's increased funding to the highest levels in provincial history, along with the hiring of 7,500 additional educators and staff, adding the province is halving the processing timelines for domestic and international applicants, and has now permanently allowed second-year teaching candidates to work in schools faster. Several school boards across the GTA, including the Toronto District School Board, tell us they're actively working to recruit more staff, and that includes educational assistants.
But more importantly, we're trying to do everything we can to increase the uptake among occasional staff to accept those open jobs. What we're doing right now is making do with what we have, but making sure that we're doing that as smartly as possible.
Staff and parents hope to see successful solutions soon. They say the students' well-being is top of mind.
I mean, I am concerned. I think it's important for routine for kids. I think it's important for them to have the same presence in the classroom with teachers and EAs as they normally have.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
CBC News has learned executives from Honda are set to meet this week with the federal government. It comes amid reports the Japanese car maker is looking at spending billions of dollars to build electric vehicles and batteries in Canada. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
This Honda car factory in Alliston in southwestern Ontario could one day be manufacturing electric vehicles and their batteries. Japanese media reports Honda is considering spending more than $18 billion to build electric vehicles in Canada, with a decision to come by the end of this year.
Canada makes sense for a lot of reasons, including they've got the relationship, they've got the land, they've got the suppliers, and the critical minerals for the batteries that they sound like they want to make are all here and in an abundance in a way that don't exist in a lot of other places.
Canada will ban the sale of new passenger vehicles that use gas or diesel by 2035. That's prompted automakers to start talking with federal and provincial governments. Ottawa has already promised tens of billions to electric car makers Stellantis and Volkswagen. Honda would be a big get.
It's very significant for the Japanese, who are generally pretty cautious and only make moves when they're really ready to go. And oftentimes it marks a real transition point.
But Honda and Ottawa will not reveal details about a potential plan.
All of those investments finding their way into Alliston, Ontario is intoxicating, but unlikely.
Some automotive experts question if Canada has a chance.
It would make more sense for them to be closer to their core manufacturing organization, which is in Ohio.
But others point out the Alliston, Ontario plant is where Honda pilots new vehicles.
It is well within the realm of possibility that this could go forward, and personally, I think it would be a great business decision if they decided to do this.
The race to get electric vehicles and their batteries built here is also driven by competition south of the border, where the United States is pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into electric vehicle subsidies. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
The University of Michigan Wolverines will be playing for the College Football National Championship tonight. It's the first time since 1997, and there's no shortage of fans for the team on this side of the border. We spoke with some who've traveled to Houston, and they've done it in blue and yellow style, converting an old ambulance into an ambulance. We reach Ross Mitten, owner of the Blue Loonie, by phone.
Oh, we get a lot of stares. We get a lot of pictures. It's a unique vehicle. And, you know, it was just meant to be around to have a good time. When we started doing this, when we started tailgating and going to the games, there was only 4 of us. And within a few years, we were up to 40 and 50. And I just said, you know, we were using 3 little road trip grills, and we had numerous coolers full of food and beer. And I just said, you know, we need an equipment upgrade. So the first thing we did is we found a barbecue trailer down in Savannah, Georgia. We bought that, and then a few years later, we did the ambulance. Oh, I'm predicting a Michigan victory. The difference, I think, is that Michigan's defense, which is ranked number 2 in the country, will be able to slow down Michael Penix enough that our ground game will be able to eat up some time, and we'll be okay.
Well, there's a look at your tower camera now. Partly cloudy conditions, but it is at least dry out there, and you may want to soak that up because the rest of the week looks a lot messier. Your weather forecast coming up. Josiah, to say the least, it was a bit of an interesting weather weekend that we were having.
It was, Megan. Actually, there was even a bit of snow, and in true Windsor fashion, some of us tried to make the most of that, including our television producer, Jason Vio, who attempted some tobogganing with his kids. Check this out.
Let's go.
So there you go, Meg. That snow we've been waiting for finally came. I know we've talked about that a little bit. Jason did tell me, though, that most of that snow was gone sometime in the afternoon, so it definitely didn't stick around.
I love the patches of grass sticking out from underneath the snow, and especially those little screams that sounded like they had a really good time. Today, I saw a bit of the opposite scene. This is a look at the Detroit River at around 1:30 this afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And that is someone kayaking down it. I know it's warmer, but I still feel like this would be pretty cold.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Meg. That would definitely be chilly. That's not going to be me. And I'll tell you right now, it is kind of chilly right now. We're sitting at 1 degree, partly cloudy. That doesn't scream kayaking to me. It's going to stay that way overnight. But tomorrow we are seeing some shifts. So let's take a look at our 5-day forecast. Tomorrow, perhaps you both want your kayak and sled on hand. There's a high of 4, but rain or snow throughout the day. That turns completely to rain overnight with a low of 2. Wednesday and Thursday, 60% chance of flurries, high of 3 degrees on Wednesday, and a bit of a dip with a high of 1 on Thursday. Friday, cloudy skies, no snow during the day, and a high of 1. And Saturday's calling for snow, but we'll keep an eye on if that changes. A high of -3 for Saturday, dipping to a chilly -9 overnight. So perhaps some more tobogganing as we head towards the weekend. And Meg, we also did speak with Environment Canada today about the messy mix of weather that's expected starting tomorrow. Here's a bit of what they had to say.
We are going to get a bit of snow tomorrow morning when the storm starts, but it's really going to be primarily a rain event. So basically, it's a rain event preceded by some snow and probably ended with some snow. So kind of a rain and snow sandwich with snow on both ends. We were saying 2 centimeters earlier. Now we're saying 5 centimeters of snow to begin with tomorrow morning, but then it's going to change to rain fairly quickly. High of +4 tomorrow, so well above 0 tomorrow. So it should all, most of the snow hopefully most of the snow will melt.
All right, Meg, so a delicious rain and snow sandwich.
That's a good line.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
really
lie.
is.
Yeah,
I'm going to steal that.
That paints quite a picture.
It does. And one thing I should mention, though, Meg, is the City of Windsor is preparing for this, what was just mentioned there. They are asking drivers to take it slow as roads might become slippery. Plowing starts on main roads when that snow accumulation hits 5 centimeters. So definitely drive safe in that sandwich.
Well, thank you so much for that, Josiah. That is Josiah Sinanen. Now, there's a partial price tag on damage caused by extreme weather in Canada last year due to storms, flood, and fires. Insurance companies are paying out lots of money. That's coming up. Inspectors are starting to check out Boeing's fleet of 737 MAX 9s. One of the planes had to make an emergency landing in Oregon on Friday after a panel blew out mid-flight. Sasha Petrusik has the latest on the investigation.
Boeing 737 MAX 9 jets remain grounded worldwide for inspection, with reports that United has already found loose bolts in some of its planes. This as U.S. Transportation Safety Board experts continue to investigate the flight whose mishap set off alarm bells. Their job became easier as a Portland, Oregon teacher named Bob discovered the fallen piece of the Alaska Airlines jet in his backyard.
I'm excited to announce that we found the door plug. Woo! Thank you, Bob.
The NTSB is also collecting passenger cell phones which dropped to earth, as well as other fragments.
Our focus right now is on this aircraft to determine what happened, how it happened, and to prevent it from happening again.
We declared an emergency.
The Alaska Airlines flight was on its way from Portland to California when the panel blew off shortly after takeoff, with passengers calling it a trip from hell.
The sound was very loud. For it to suck the guy's T-shirt off and take his phone off his hand, I've seen it in the movies, but this is real.
The low altitude prevented serious injuries and the plane landed safely. But it's not the first time Boeing's 737 jets have been grounded. 2 deadly crashes of an earlier version kept the planes out of the skies for more than a year. This incident raises more questions about rushed production.
Boeing seems to me to have a systemic problem with quality control. They're turning out 38 MAXs a month. Think about that. One of these giant airplanes is coming off the assembly line every single day.
Boeing's only comment about the latest incident is a post online that it agrees with and fully supports the mandatory inspections of all 171 of its planes. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
There's a partial price tag on damage caused by extreme weather in Canada last year due to storms, flood, and fires. Insurance companies paid out more than $3 billion. As David Thurton reports, Canada has become a country risky to insure.
It's been a rough year for many Canadian homeowners.
The level of the water was about 1 meter inside of the home. So my home was destroyed.
The spring flooding in Quebec's Charlevoix region was one weather story among many. You name it, 2023 saw it.
Oh my God!
Tornadoes, pelting hail, and of course, devastating wildfires.
This was a pretty intense year, as Canadians know.
New numbers from the Insurance Bureau of Canada show for the second year in a row, Canada exceeded $3 billion in insured damage from severe weather. The costliest, BC's Okanagan-Shuswap wildfires, coming in at $720 million in insured losses, followed by Ontario's severe summer storms at $340 million. Then the spring ice storm that hit Ontario and Quebec at $330 million. It's becoming an annual trend, earning Canada a reputation for being an expensive place to insure.
What these numbers mean is that when insurers globally take a look at Canada, they view Canada as one of the riskier places in the world to insure and to do business.
This researcher says governments, businesses, and Canadians must make neighborhoods and homes more resistant to floods, wildfires, and storms.
And that's why we keep talking about climate adaptation, for example, so adapting our communities, our homes, so that insurance companies don't have to pull out of insuring our homes.
Pinochet says he couldn't get flood insurance.
I accept what happened, and I'm going to try to do my best to be happy in my new place and continue to make my work.
His house had to be demoed, and he was forced to walk away from the place he called home for 26 years. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.